Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Felipe Contreras Natural Anaerobic Processed Guatemala from Manhattan Coffee Roasters. And there's the bag right there. And Manhattan, based out of Rotterdam, Netherlands, and they're the European roaster we feature the most on this channel, as they're not just our favorite European roaster, but one of our favorite coffee roasters in the entire world. And a real quick funny story about this coffee specifically was I went to the store and saw that they had the Felipe Contreras and immediately purchased it, thinking I was purchasing the wash processed Geisha, but it turns out that they had a second coffee, this Anaerobic Natural Bourbon, and I did not know that. So when I got home and saw that I purchased the wrong coffee, I thought it was kind of funny and made a mistake, but went ahead and just worked with this coffee, saw what I could get from it, and it will be an interesting review. Very much looking forward to discussing it. But one other quick note I must get out of the way. As you've probably noticed, I have a different computer than normal, and that is because the computer I've been using for about a year and a half crashed for the second time, and I lost all of my notes and tasting wheels. So as a result, I had to start from scratch. My notes aren't going to be as accurate as they normally are, as I had to work through memory specifically for this coffee and a couple of other coffees that I'm reviewing in the future. But this is the computer I will be using from this point forward. So yeah, there's that. This right here is day 28 of this coffee. And recipe for Manhattan that we have is a 16:1 water to coffee ratio at 208 degrees Fahrenheit. Liked this coffee best through the Chemex, tried it several ways. And this is a light European for the roast profile. And let's start discussing this coffee. All right, day 9, first impression, and it was a really wild first impression. So if you see the flavor notes on this coffee, they have listed here toffee, apple, cacao nibs, and raisins, which definitely doesn't sound like my flavor profile coffee. And immediately upon grinding the coffee, it smelled really sweet, almost berry-like, and I couldn't help but make a note of that. And after I took the first sip, the first thing that jumped to my mind was cream savors. This coffee just radiated cream savors. And it was a pretty solid first impression. The sweetness that I had smelt from the aroma was present just as much in the cup itself. So a lot different from what I was expecting with this cup of coffee. Day 12, the coffee was already opening up, as the coffee can be described in a number of ways. Strawberry milkshake, strawberry sundae, essentially a really strong strawberries and cream. The thing I would most closely align it with on this day is kind of a strawberry cereal with milk. Day 15, getting some more berries in this cup of coffee, including a slight bit of this red berry cereal. Still, no matter what, for the first week and a half or so, I would describe this cup of coffee as essentially strawberry cream savers. It was a very strawberry cream saver dominant cup of coffee, pretty consistent in its intensity. It was always a pretty intense cup of coffee throughout. Day 18, still feel, again, best way to describe this is a strong cream savers, more so plenty of additional strawberry sundae-like components, including berries, cream, chocolate, caramel, nuts, so everything that you could imagine in a strawberry sundae, I felt was definitely present in this cup. Day 21, coffee was losing a slight bit of the strawberry intensity and was being replaced by a slight bit more of this kind of red berry, red raspberry intensity, and could feel a little bit of the graining quality was also there, pretty persistent throughout drinking this cup of coffee, and that's why it reminded me a lot of cereal, was because there was a slight bit of that graining quality, and it was a kind of berry graining component in this cup of coffee for me. Day 24, coffee was skewing a little bit more towards a chocolate profile. So the chocolate's been present throughout this cup of coffee, but in place of the really strong berries experienced early on in this cup of coffee, we were getting a little bit more of the chocolate components in this cup of coffee, as well as a little bit more of the other components. The caramel was increasing a little bit, the nuttiness was increasing a little bit, so the coffee was just skewing in this direction. And then day 26, could definitely say that this one's overly dominant kind of cream saver strawberry berry component that was from this cup of coffee has definitely been dialed back, and a little bit more of the kind of grainy and chocolate note. So I would even describe this as a chocolate cereal on this day, with a fair bit of nuttiness and still a really, really intense cup of coffee. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. And 4 things at a level 4, the finish, the sweetness, the berry fruit, and the chocolate. So definitely been kind of harping on how intense this cup of coffee is, and it's definitely felt throughout the finish, as this is a pretty lasting cup of coffee. We've been also harping on the sweetness, as this is a really sweet cup of coffee, more so than I was expecting, as the level 4 is definitely justified for both of those. Berry fruit, level 4, yeah, throughout the time drinking this cup of coffee, whether it be strawberry or slightly a little bit more towards a raspberry at the end, definitely a pretty berry cup of coffee. And they have raisin note listed on here. I had to take a look at the note, but they have a raisin note listed on here. And I could definitely say with anaerobic coffees, more often than not, I get kind of this grapey component to this cup of coffee. So that would also be lumped in with the berry category. And I was definitely feeling a little bit of grape berry throughout the time drinking this cup of coffee. And then the other thing is the chocolate, which is at a level 4. I feel like on the earlier days, it's probably a level 3, but closer towards the end of this coffee, it definitely justified a level 4. So I feel like those look pretty good. Saltiness level 3, on other days probably a level 2. Been harping on the nuttiness as well, as that's definitely present through this cup of coffee. Body, when it was done through the V60, I might even push this up to a level 4, as it's a very textured cup of coffee. There is so much body in this cup of coffee, even through the Chemex, which is a notoriously light-bodied brew method. So level 3 is really, really high for the body. Cleanliness level 3, I think that's pretty good. Anytime you get an anaerobic natural at a level 3, that's pretty good. Acidity toned down. They have toffee apple listed on here. Whatever slight acidity there is, I can definitely feel it being reminiscent of that apple acidity. Nothing else too much worth noting. We have a couple things at a level 2, the caramel at a level 3, but I think those are pretty self-explanatory. All right. Overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. So I went in purchasing the wrong coffee, and I didn't necessarily know what to expect from this coffee, and it was so different from what I was actually expecting, as I was kind of thinking this was going to be something that was by no means my flavor profile, and it turned out to be something that was unique and very interesting, something that was super fun to review. I liked this coffee quite a bit at the start. I thought it was so out there. The kind of creaminess, the strawberryness of this coffee was really fun. Towards the end, though, especially as it was skewing a little bit more towards the chocolate, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I had on the earlier days. But that being said, for the entire time drinking this cup of coffee, it was a much more wild experience than I was expecting. So that's, again, something that's a testament to Manhattan. I think one of the most important things I could ever say about Manhattan's coffees is they're almost never dull. They're always going to be really flavorful cups of coffee. So if you're looking for a coffee that's ever going to kind of just shout flavors at you, Manhattan's the coffee roaster for you. So that leads to the type of person I would suggest this coffee to. Definitely somebody that does like the cream savers. I know that they don't really list any sort of berry-like components in this cup of coffee, but I could not help but shake the feeling about how strong this berry intensity was, especially in the earlier days. As it's kind of skewing towards the end, a little bit more towards the chocolate profile. Throughout drinking this cup of coffee, it's just kind of like a strawberry sundae experience, which is really fun. And, you know, it's going to be an intense cup of coffee, lighter profiled cup of coffee, so keep all of those things in mind, but it's still made for a pretty interesting and out there cup of coffee. I think for the most part, I'm going to leave this review at that. If you have by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee or the Felipe Contreras Gish, I would love to know your thoughts and impressions of either of those two coffees, as it seems unlikely I'll get an opportunity to try that coffee anytime soon. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Felipe Contreras Natural Anaerobic Processed Guatemala.